Hey everyone, let me break down to you exactly what's going on right now. You were removed from nature, which is why you have no sense of what you are anymore. You are a carnivorous animal, and you can live to many hundreds of years if you would base your diet on blood and eat some fat and organs now and then. This is what the enlightened ones do, who we call the Illuminati, elite, etc. What they call the New World Order is mostly about food, which is why there are all of these conspiracy theories about 9/11, the flat earth, chemtrails, etc., to distract us from the real truth, and that is that our health is being destroyed. That's their priority. They demonize cholesterol, even though all of our cells are made out of cholesterol, seeing as we only have animal cells, and consuming other animal cells is the definition of healthy, because you are consuming exactly what you are made out of. This way, over centuries, and especially the last decades, they got vampires to be afraid of their natural diet. The first step was to remove blood and raw meat from our diets around 100 years ago and start cooking more. Then slowly remove the organs. Then eat mostly cooked muscle meat. Later on, they said that that's also unhealthy, and that we should eat mostly grains, vegetables, and fruit, as the Illuminati food pyramid shows. Now eggs and dairy are also unhealthy, which means that we should go vegan. And that automatically means supporting big pharma, synthetic chemicals, and synthetic food. After veganism, all food will be made synthetically.
This is Lord Birkenhead in 1929 talking about 2029. Agriculture will be abolished, except as a hobby, and all foodstuffs will be produced synthetically. Man will be able to alter the geography or climate of the world. Sitting in our homes, we will see and hear events the world over. At present, we nourish ourselves by a curiously wasteful and roundabout method. Solar energy is absorbed by plants and stored by them in their structures, mainly in the form of cellulose. The human body is unable to digest cellulose, and so to extract nourishment from it. Many animals, however, aided by obliging bacteria, are able to perform this feat, and we keep herds of sheep, cattle, and pigs, all engaged in the task of digesting cellulose and transforming it into the meat and milk upon which we live. Already it is possible to convert indigestible cellulose into digestible sugar, but as yet the cost of the operation prevents its being carried out, except as a laboratory experiment. Such processes as this will certainly be further investigated and developed, so that by 2029 starch and sugar, two of our most valuable foods, will be as cheap as sand and sawdust today. Concerning proteins, the other most important human foods, two possibilities exist. Either they too will be produced synthetically, or else the more highly prized varieties of animal foods, such for example as beef steak or chicken's breast, will be grown in suitable media in the laboratory. From one parent steak of choice tenderness, it will be possible to grow as large and as juicy a steak as can be desired. So long as the parent is supplied with the correct chemical nourishment, it will continue to grow indefinitely and perhaps eternally. Whenever it is sufficiently large, a few pounds can be cut from it and sent to market. Here's an article about 400 Tesco stores selling toxic fake wheat and soy meat made in the Netherlands. Later on they reported that they sold 40,000 of those within days. KFC is also going to replace their chicken with fake meat. All of this is happening right now.
Nobody gives a fuck about vegans eating plants. There's a lot of stupid people out there doing stupid shit. The problem is that the people in power want to ban meat and are using vegans as tools to make it happen. You're just brainwashed sheep and can do whatever you want. But when you try to force your religious beliefs onto others, then you become anti-human. The people who believe that veganism is just a trend will have a bad awakening. I really wish it was a trend. A lot of them say that eggs are chicken periods. As close-minded as you may be, you would have to admit that there's something mentally wrong with you when you keep repeating it over and over again without ever finding out that chickens don't even have periods.
Most of the time, a lot of people who go into the vegan thing come from a libertarian perspective, and they have the idea that the non-aggression principle of libertarianism should be extended to animals. So the problem with this is that it gets into the assumption that, number one, the non-aggression principle is true. Number two, that you have some way to back it up on an atheistic or non-theistic perspective. I mean, why should I adhere to the non-aggression principle? There's no right. So in other words, they'll say, well, but because it's human decency and all this stuff, why should I listen to human decency? There's no reason or philosophical justification that you could give me that I have to follow that, especially on your libertarian perspective, which says, you know, do whatever you want, just don't hurt people. Why should I not hurt people? I mean, I'm not saying I want to hurt people. I'm saying that on that perspective, there's no reason why I shouldn't hurt people. Right. So what they do then is they extend that to animals, and they say that, well, we also shouldn't be aggressive towards animals. But first of all, they haven't established why I have to follow the non-aggression principle or why this is somehow self-evidently true. They're just assuming it. But in philosophy, you can't assume things, and you can't try to bind people to your principles without some sort of justification, which they can't give. On the very fact of the way their worldview is constructed, there's no way they're going to be able to justify it. It becomes arbitrary. It just becomes, well, because I say so, because it's not good to do that. Well, why is it not good to do that? Because it's bad, right? Well, that's a circular argument. So again, no, there's no inherent reason why it's wrong to eat animals. I don't know. I mean, it is good. You're right. I'm a big fan of steaks. I grill out like every day. So yeah. And one other thing I would say too is that you can actually read globalist writings like Alvin Toffler. He's one of the top globalists, and he talks about how they will sell people on the idea of veganism as a means to controlling your diet and your food. So what they're eventually going to do is outlaw meat. And all these dummies have fallen for this just from a bunch of YouTube crap. And they're all given this by the globalists themselves. It's the globalists who are selling you on the idea that you can't have your own farm, that you shouldn't eat cows, you shouldn't eat meat. And Plato talked about this back in his writings from an elite perspective. And he says in the Republics, don't let your slaves eat meat, just feed them rice and grains. So this is why we have soy boys. This is why we have all these weaklings. This is why you're being socially engineered into accepting the green agenda, smart cities, living in a coffin-sized apartment, austerity, not eating meat. They're going to control your diet, and this is all listed in the globalist writings themselves. So if you fall for it, it's your own stupidity. It's your own fault. Yeah, and this was written about in one of the top global strategist planners, Bertrand Russell. He wrote 2 books a long time ago in the 20s and 30s talking about how, one of these is in 1953, and one of them is in 1929, I think. And in Scientific Outlook and Impact of Science on Society, and again, he's one of the top globalist strategists, well known publicly. He says that in the future, when they set up this kind of global government, what they're going to do is basically turn them into these kind of weak drones that can be easily controlled by the state. And the way that they'll do that is through diet, injections, and state-controlled education, and he means inoculations, like excessive amounts of vaccinations. He was saying this back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, that this is how they would do it. But he specifically says diet, and he says we're going to completely control your diet, and we're not going to let the underclass, the people, the population, have the sustenance that they need. We're going to keep them on this GMO. He talked about GMOs back then, giving everybody GMO fake food. And get this, he says that the elite will remain in their class eating steaks and sumptuous dining meals. Like they're going to keep eating steaks.
Sure,
right?
Of course they are.
That's what he says. He says we're going to fool these idiots into adopting their own destruction. And he says that people are so stupid and malleable that we can convince them of anything.
Vegans don't realize where they are. This is a battleground where the strongest ones, who kill the most animals and drink their blood, will ascend. Veganism is perfect for the enlightened ones because vegans are against killing animals for no reason except that they were religiously brainwashed to accept it. The plan was to make you grow up in cities or even smaller towns and only show you blood in horror films. That way you will obviously automatically associate blood with horror. This is why they show you the slaughterhouse footage in the Netflix and Hollywood vegan documentaries. Think about it. You're a pussy, quite literally, and you see an animal being killed for the first time. the brainwash from the horror films clicks in your head and you become a vegan purely because of shock and religious brainwashing about man-made morals all of your life. The fact that there are people out there nowadays who are afraid of killing animals is extremely alarming. Vegan men are the definition of pussies and losers. Thank you for watching.